Hello and welcome to Makers.dev, episode number 127. Chris, did you know that the Makers.dev podcast featuring co-hosts Christian Jenko and Chris Ashard in episode number 127 was the longest gap between episodes, recording them, of any episode in the podcast history? Did you know that? Fun fact?
Oh, what a fun fact.
It's been 90 days since we last recorded.
Yeah.
OpenAI has had like 4 different CEO changes in that time.
I think that is accurate. Yeah, I think 4.
There's like 4 more new World War level conflicts going on. It's been a long time. Like 6 new cell phones and 3 new VR headsets. There's a lot to catch up on, including notably one of us in the last 90 days has gone through a major life event. Things will never be the same. Talk to me about your Grandmaster status on Kaggle.
We're going to bury the lead here, too?
We're going to bury the
lead. Sure, I will go first. I got Grandmaster on Kaggle. Yeah.
Congratulations!
Competition is Grandmaster.
Been a long time coming. It's so long, I don't even know the competition that you entered, that you got your last gold in. Tell me all about it.
Yeah, I think I talked briefly about it because it probably had just launched last time we talked. It was the sleep detecting one. So
yeah, okay.
These are kids that wore essentially smartwatches and trying to detect their sleep cycles based on the accelerometers. So I did it. I teamed up, even though my team can't win money because I'm a Google employee, but that's okay. Yes. I got 3 other people to join my team anyway, and we got 9th place, which was a gold medal because the top I think in this one 14 places were gold since almost 2,000 people joined. Yeah, we got 9th out of 2,000, which gave me my 5th gold medal, and I'm now a Grandmaster.
How does it feel to be a Grandmaster?
I don't know, no different. The next day I started looking at more competitions.
Does it do anything? Like, I think that's, if you're ever applying for a job, you can brag about that you're a Grandmaster, but
yeah, so you get a little gold circle instead of a red one.
Oh man. Okay.
Now I have a gold circle. Also some companies care about it. So like NVIDIA, H2O, Hugging Face, there's a few others that actually know what Kaggle Grandmaster means and care about it. But I'm also not looking to switch jobs anytime soon, so that doesn't really matter.
Does Google care? Did Google give you any credit for becoming a Grandmaster?
I would say no, except people at Google know what Kaggle is since they own it. And not everyone does, but so some people know what it is, and that was nice. But
okay,
in terms of jobs, it doesn't matter. Yeah.
Okay. That didn't send you a cake or something like.
No,
amazing.
Not at all.
Okay. Well, that's pretty cool. Any insights in doing the actual competition of? I know I went through this journey personally of trying to figure out to diagnose my sleep onset insomnia, like what the most accurate sleep tracking was. And as far as I can tell, EEG sleep monitoring, where you put electrical leads on your head and actually measure your brain activity, is the gold standard. And then it's really hard as a proxy to just be dealing with movement accelerometer data, or heart rate is like one step above that. But ultimately, you're using those as a proxy for what's the brain activity. The problem I run into is sleep onset insomnia. If I'm just laying there for an hour, I'm not moving, so the accelerometer thinks, Christian must be sleeping. But I'm actually just thinking about every embarrassing thing I've ever said in my life, and not sleeping. So what was the data that you were dealing with? Did you have the EEG and the accelerometer data? Did you have some sort of point of truth? And what?
So it was just the accelerometer data, hand labeled by human experts. And so it was maybe slightly better than the automatic labeling you can get, but it was still just labeled based on accelerometer data, which means it has the problems you were talking about. Yeah, if you are just really still for an hour, that looks like sleeping. Yeah.
Okay. Was there any, how did you get in the top to get the gold?
Just like all the other competitions, it was a lot of work. I always think it's it's not going to be that much work. And then, the last 2 weeks, I probably worked 30 hours a week on it. It was crazy just to get 9th place, So we ended up ensembling 3 different models. And then a big trick of this one was doing some post-processing. So not AI-based stuff, but just basic rule-based stuff we noticed by looking at the data. And so one of the team members did a lot of post-processing that boosted us quite a bit. And it was any of the 3 models by themselves was not terribly difficult to like get working on its own. So you could probably get to 95% effectiveness just by getting one of the models working. But yeah, the trick to getting gold is always to combine some clever approaches. And so yeah, we combined 3 different models and a bunch of post-processing.
Smart. I'm reminded of a book I read in college called Incognito, The Secret Lives of the Brain or something, that talks about how from a neuroscience standpoint, apparently the structure of the brain is that you have all these independent, I think the book framed it as a sort of colloquium. Is that the right word? Like a big group of people. I think one of the examples in the book is something like you see a cupcake and you have a whole bunch of different circuits in your brain voting on what your next action should be. And effectively what the higher mind is doing is just taking a poll of all these lower level sub-processes and then figuring out what the consensus is of if you have more circuits or stronger circuits that are saying eat the cupcake, then you eat the cupcake. And each one might have its own rationale for doing so. You might have a circuit that's like, I want to eat colorful things, and this cupcake is very colorful. And you might have one that's expecting a sugar rush, and that one's going to vote. And you might have one that's saying, I have this longer term goal of wanting to be fit and active, and that's voting in the negative. So it sounds like that's like you made a little mini version of that. You had 3 different subcircuits, and then they vote. And how do you average them? How do you figure out? Do you just average them and say each one has equal weight?
Yeah, so that was actually tricky in the competition. A lot of times they're outputting just a score or something for a lot of problems, and so you can just average the scores. For this one, we did end up averaging them, but we ended up doing a couple other things too, and it was especially tricky because, so say you predict this so we had to predict onset and wake up events. So onset of sleep and then wake up from sleep. Mm-hmm. So say you predict an onset event here and an onset event here. How do you average them? Like maybe you can detect the peaks and then merge them together. Maybe you could just average them and they're both half the size, and that so it was pretty tricky, especially because the metric was a little tricky. In Kaggle, you always have to work towards the metric, and so it was not that you only had to predict one event per night. That would have gotten you some score, but instead you provided a score for as many events as you wanted to predict per night, and then within thresholds, they took the top score, labeled that your prediction within that threshold, and then you got a certain number of points for that threshold, and then there was expanding thresholds. So
hold on, you're giving predictions for events and your confidence that those events happen?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then it would just take the max confidence. And so, yeah, it was actually pretty confusing. It was a pretty confusing metric. They did this way for reasons which I can talk about, but and it's not a bad metric. It's just a confusing metric. So yeah, we did end up averaging them, but then there was also some of that post-processing was sort of taking into account this thresholding and tolerance effect based on, it's not as simple as just averaging predictions. So yeah, that was part of the complication of it.
Okay. Tricky. Good job. That's really cool. You're a Grandmaster. What's the next one? Are there any fun ones on the horizon?
There's one I started just after this, but it only has like a month left, and so I'm quite a bit behind some of the other teams. It's sort of interesting. It is predicting, so it's essentially automatically grading student essays, which we talked about before, but instead of having the essay, what you have is their key typing analytics, essentially. So you don't know what keys they pressed, but you know when they press keys, when they move their mouse, when they, how much they type and delete and cut and copy and paste. So can you predict their grade just from essentially their typing and mouse movement habits?
I'm curious if someone cheated, if they just like asked ChatGPT to write their essay for them, and then they just copy and pasted it, and then they got a high grade. Like would that confabulate the data that the highest grades are the ones that are just cheating the most?
Yeah. That's an interesting thing. I think the trick for this data set is it's not real students. What they did, I think they got Mechanical Turk or something else to write on this thing. And then they verified essentially that the sequence looked like a human did it. So it looks like they had to have multiple key presses and stuff, not just one giant copy paste.
Interesting.
Yeah. At least I haven't run into that in the data.
Speaking of ChatGPT, I find myself using this just all the time now. This has become a central. I'm in my personal life and in like home renovation projects, which I'll talk about later, and just any general question I have in life and in work. I'm using this thing, I don't know, a dozen or 24 times per day in different conversations. When you were doing the work of making solving this Kaggle competition, and has ChatGPT been integrated in your life? Was this helpful for you in doing the actual lower code?
Yeah, so that's interesting. I have not nearly integrated it like you have. Like I talk to it maybe once a week. I mean, maybe.
Okay. What's the weekly conversation you have with it?
So for natural language processing, the class I just took, we were encouraged to use it to, get ideas about our final project. So not to get ideas, but like how to solve certain things. So I tried it there. It's mostly just me trying certain things. I don't know. What have I asked it? I suppose I've asked it a few code questions. Yeah, that's just not very much. So I'm curious to hear your, like, how do you use it? Is it what tools do you use, and when do you reach for it versus, like, I don't know, doing anything else?
The tools is an easy one to answer because I've tried a whole bunch of different things. I've tried native apps. I've tried like integrating directly with the API and doing the playground, and I've tried Google Bard and OpenAI's thing, and I don't have Grok access yet, but from what I've seen about Grok, I don't think it's going to be as good. Anthropic also is really. Go ahead.
I think Grok just uses the OpenAI API often. That
they have, yeah. It's I've seen some tweets about people who have screenshotted that they ask Grok a question, and then it says, "Oh, because of OpenAI's policies, I can't."
Yeah, I saw that one too.
Yeah, so that's kind of fishy, right? Like, what's going on there? Anthropic, I was excited about. I think they're probably in the number 2 spot. Small aside, I'm also really excited about Anthropic because apparently FTX owns like 20% or something of Anthropic, which is, and FTX is the company, if you remember, Dude, Where's My Crypto episode. Sarah and I lost a substantial amount of money, mostly because of the FTX collapse. So Anthropic being a very valuable company, I would think means FTX now has a whole bunch of assets in stock in Anthropic, which would mean everybody gets their money back, but we'll see what happens. Okay, aside done. So I've tried Anthropic. I've tried all the other ones.
As an aside, I've watched like 4 different documentaries about Sam Bankman-Fried since that episode.
Fascinating. He's a weird dude. It's a story. I'm excited for the Netflix special, like at the level of the Elizabeth Holmes.
Right.
Anyway, okay. So I've tried all those different things. The best one, in my opinion, is ChatGPT 4. It's the pro version. You have to pay for it. I've talked to a lot of people who are like, "Oh, I tried the ChatGPT thing. It's not that great." If you're not paying for it, it's the difference between like, I think when ChatGPT 3.5, which is the free version, took the LSAT, I think it scored in the bottom quartile. And I think when ChatGPT 4 took the LSAT, I think it scored in something like the top 10%. Don't quote me on that. They have a paper where they researched it. It's a gap like that.
Yeah.
So if you're asking a robot AI for help, both of these debatable, but like I'm pretty sure both of them are passing the Turing test. Like it's both incredible. It's amazing. We have access to this AI. You can just talk to it. It knows everything. But if you have the choice between the free one that's like a really shitty lawyer or and that level of smartness across every domain, or one of the smartest lawyers that there are, and one of the smartest just generally people that there are in every domain, for I don't even know how much it is. It's like $15 or $30 a month. Absolutely, pay for it and like try it for a month and force yourself to use it, and it's gonna be amazing. So I have that on a keyboard shortcut on my Mac. I set it up so it's like its own browser window. Oh, and it's best to go through the OpenAI interface. So use the official app, use the web app on Mac. Don't use any of the third-party ones because they're updating this like crazy. They added multimodal support a couple weeks ago where you can update, you can upload images, you can talk to it, you can open this dialogue, and they have a voice that sounds just like, what's her name? The voice actress from the movie Her. Starts with a J.
Scarlett Johansson?
Scarlett Johansson, yes. I guess it doesn't start with a J. Oh, no.
Her last name starts with a J.
Yeah, last name starts with a J. That's right. So that's kind of cool because you feel like you're in the movie Her. And it's amazing. So I find myself using it just like any context where I would be Googling something or asking a friend who's an expert in this thing. I'm just like, let me just ask ChatGPT real quick. And it's probably 19 times out of 20. It just nails it. And it like brings in information that I didn't know I didn't need to know, and that I didn't know I needed to know. And it's incredible. Coding stuff, and at every level, it can write individual programs. It can write little snippets and functions, and it can answer higher level architectural questions for home renovation
do you do that
stuff.
Straight on the OpenAI webpage too, or do you use like Copilot or anything like that?
I also have Copilot, and Copilot's useful like inline for doing functions. The way I find myself using Copilot is most frequently I'll if there's a function that I'm like not quite sure how to do, I can't remember the last example of this, but something like, oh, I need to calculate the sum of this array. I'll write a comment that says sum of the array, and then I wouldn't actually need to do it like this. So for that specific example, I could just say const sum equals, and then it'll fill in the rest of the line. That's the sort of thing that I use Copilot for, and that in itself is super worthwhile. And then for something slightly more complicated, if I have, it knows all the context of the file, so I might use domain-specific knowledge and say like, I need to find the shortest clip, and then it knows from the previous context where my clips are and how they're stored, and then I say const shortest clip equals, and then it's able to fill in the rest of it. Yeah, that's how I use that. But then ChatGPT is also useful for, it's like having a pair programmer. It's like having a junior developer that you can just, it costs $30 a month and also answers all your other questions.
Right.
Yeah, it's incredible. So the next time you have any sort of question in your life, you can take pictures of stuff. If you're not sure what a thing is, a big part of what I want to talk about is this home renovation project. But like, I was ripping up the floor and I wasn't sure what different pieces were, and I wasn't sure what things were called, and I would just take a picture of it and be like, hey, what's this? And you can draw a little arrow to it, and I might explain what it is, and within the context of that chat, then it knows what I'm doing and what the area is. So one of those was I ripped up the rotten floorboards, and there were 2 layers of subfloor of 3/4 inch plywood, and I was like, hey, what's up with this? And it said, that's less common, but might have been done for waterproofing and is slightly more stable. And there was this weird black layer between it, and I was like, what's this black layer for? And ChatGPT says, that's roofing paper, and that would be used to prevent squeaking. And I'm like, oh, wonderful. Like, how would I have known that otherwise? This would have just been a mystery. Or I would have had to have a friend who knew this. And actually, I asked Patrick, my brother-in-law, who's incredibly handy, what it was. And he was like, I don't know. So I'm like, that's the person I would have asked. So,
right.
Invaluable. I feel like I'm just, I'm suddenly competent and capable in every domain. I could just drop me somewhere with a phone with an internet connection with ChatGPT installed, and I could probably figure something out. It's I highly recommend using it more.
Interesting. Yeah. So I did pay for it for a month for the NLP project, but then I didn't force myself to use it. Like you were talking about. So I just didn't get the habit of it. So maybe I should continue the subscription and force myself to use it.
I recommend it. I don't know if you should or not. Live your life, but
sure.
We did bury the lead because we had another really big life event, which is that you finished your semester. Congratulations.
You goofy. Yeah, I did. I took natural language processing and reinforcement learning, and I think I got an A in NLP, and if they don't curve the final, I'll probably get a B in reinforcement learning, which is fine. I've gotten an A in every other class. But I'll vent for a second about finals. They had a few different questions where like they were worth like 10 or 12 points each, and there were multiple parts, and each part built on the last part. And for 2 different ones, I sort of either misread or misinterpreted the question in a small way. And so I got the first part wrong, which means I got every part wrong, even though every other part followed from the first part. And there's no partial credit because it's automatically graded. And so like I feel like I should have gotten partial credit for the 3 out of the 4 answers because it followed perfectly from my first answer. But anyway,
I may have talked about this in the podcast before, but I was in a similar situation in my high school, or in my college physics class. Second semester, there was a new professor in, and she initially gave me like a C on this exam for that exact reason. Like there was the thing in the beginning, and then I got that wrong, and then everything after that was wrong. And I went into her office. One of my proudest moments in college. I went into that office with a C on the exam, and I walked out with an A minus.
Yeah,
just because I made that argument that the part that I got wrong is this part right here. It was I don't know. I flipped a sign of I multiplied instead of divided or something. And then she gave me credit for all the rest of it. Is there a way that you can argue for that? Do you care?
I mean, I can talk to the professors, but like I don't know. They suggested they're going to curve it anyway because it was just a hard test and it auto graded with no partial credit. And so maybe instead of a B, I'll get a B plus or something. I'll be happy with that. Whatever. Okay. Like maybe I could walk in and get the extra however many points, which I mean is like a whole letter grade and a half on the exam, which is a lot, but whatever.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. We have another smaller life update, which is that I've had a baby.
That's a very small life update.
She's so small.
How is being a baby? Congratulations.
I don't know how being a baby is. It's been a while
How is
since I've
being a
been
baby? How is having a baby?
having a baby is incredible. Like, man, there's so many things to say. The thing I've been saying is that my life feels so much more full and meaningful. I'll be sitting there just doing the dishes, washing a bottle, and I'll feel in flow. Like, oh, I'm washing this bottle so that my baby can eat. This is the most important thing I could be doing. And I feel that way so much more often in so many different areas of my life. And I'm playing way fewer phone games, and I'm just moving around and doing stuff. And like, we gotta, okay, there's the summer debate. Let's do this. We like, the baby's asleep or Sarah's watching the baby. Like, all right, this is my core time to be able to do stuff. And yeah, I love it. It feels incredibly meaningful. Definitely not easy, especially the first month was tough. The first few days in the hospital were really tough. Babies need to eat. I did not know this. Every 2 hours for the first while. And that's overnight. That's whatever you're doing. The baby eats every 2 hours. So in the hospital was a challenge. The joke that Sarah and I said was our lives started revolving around the KPIs of milliliters of milk and minutes of sleep. It was tough, like, because there was some trouble feeding Isabella, our daughter, and it was just like little spoonfuls of milk we were trying to get into her. And
did you have to supplement with a syringe? We had to do that.
We didn't do a syringe. They gave us a spoon, and we just sort of like spooned it into her mouth. Yeah, but at one point there was like a team of 4 people just trying to get this baby to eat. Figured it out, and since then there's not really been any major problems. But for that little bit, it was just like, okay, I have 30 seconds. Let me go, like, change my shirt and eat, and then we're back in the game. And it's really tough to sleep in a hospital. Also, I highly recommend like the Manta sleep mask and the earplug solution. And I brought this nice sleeping bag, but man, it's like sleep deprivation on top of you've got this infant you're taking care of. The hospital was amazing. The nurses were incredible. The lactation consultants were wizards. The stuff they were able to do was just incredible. Breastfeeding, so difficult. There's so many moving pieces. That is, I had no appreciation for how complicated that was. Yeah, and since then we figured out sort of a plan of like breastfeeding and supplementing with formula, and that was a whole thing of figuring out like which formula Isabella would tolerate. So much gear, so much, like, my God, I've spent so much money on Amazon just like getting stuff in. So I could talk for so long about all the different gear choices and the categories of things to get. I think my core essential gear for new parents, you got to have a snoo. It's this smart bassinet that intelligently rocks your baby back to sleep if they're fussing, and it'll like move them around, and it's this really nice, easy to use swaddle. Swaddles are important because babies have this startle reflex, Moyer response, I think, where they'll wake themselves up because they don't yet have a developed nervous system to paralyze them during sleep like adults have. So during their sleep, they'll just flail their arms around, and then they'll wake themselves up, which is hilarious.
It's funny.
Yeah. So if you just pin their arms against themselves, they'll sleep much better. So the snoo is an excellent thing for that. It's sort of like having a robot night nurse, like a third parent at night, which is great. A bottle sterilizer has been really good. Figuring out the right sort of bottle, especially combining that with breastfeeding, having one with a wide enough flange, that was a big deal. What are the other major gear things? God, so many. We bought so much stuff. The bottle warmer was really nice. Oh, breast pumps. There's all sorts of different kinds of those. The ones that are wearable, I think, are the best. Those are the ones that have worked best with Sarah. Yeah.
Have you? I think I've recommended this before, but have you seen Mike Birbiglia's The New One on Netflix?
I think you have recommended it before, and I have not seen it.
Okay. I will spoil part of it by saying he has a bunch of baby equipment on stage at one point, and he goes through them, and he's like, this is the whatever the baby, and this is the something else, that's something else the baby. It's like a whole bunch of baby equipment.
That's funny. Yeah, so many things. Yeah, if I just handed it to a layperson, they'd be like, "What the hell is this?" Like, and you have to figure out how to clean it, like put it back together. It's tough. Also, the gear, like the car seats and the strollers, is hard to figure out and also pretty heavy. The car seat especially, like I have trouble carrying it. I don't know how women are supposed to do this. I guess you just leave it in the car and then just take the baby out. Oh, the Cloud Q is, I think, the best car seat. It folds flat. You're not supposed to keep babies inclined because their necks are weak, so they can suffocate if they're left in the car seat for too long. And it's also not good for their spine because it compresses it. The Cloud Q, once you take it out of the car, can lay flat. So if you have a sleeping baby in the car, you take them out, you can lay it flat, and then they can sleep in there much safer. We got a really good travel collapsible stroller. I couldn't tell you which one it is, but I did a lot of research on it, and here's the best one. Yeah, lots of things like that. I'm trying to think. There's like 6 other things that are core things that I can't remember right now. Anyway, just magical
sound
though,
machine,
interacting with her. Like,
baby monitor.
Sound machine's important. Oh, baby monitor, the Hello Baby is local, so the Chinese government can't spy on your baby. It's just like radio frequency to the from the monitor to a little screen they give you. Yeah. But anyway, it's great.
Hold on to the feeling, like that flow feeling for as long as possible, because like when the baby has thrown up for the 3rd time in the night and you have to clean it up, you know, just remember this is for the baby. This is the best thing for
I've
the
had
baby.
Those moments. Oh my god, she projectile pooped across the room during a diaper change. It's like, no joke, 5 feet. It went from 5 feet across the room, got on the carpet, got on the diaper genie, got on like the wall to the closet. And I just started laughing, like, all right, but it's been amazing. Oh, I think I've been very proud of myself that I feel like I tapped in this well of resiliency and strength that I didn't know I had. Something I was really apprehensive of is how I would operate under sleep deprivation, because I've really struggled with sleep.
It's no joke. Yeah,
it is no joke. It's tough. It's like baby boot camp. Like not a boot camp for babies, like a boot camp run by a baby. Right? It was a very demanding boot camp instructor, and
doesn't tell you what she wants all the time.
No, you want something. You got to figure it out. Something is wrong, and it's your responsibility to figure it out. But I was able to do it, and Sarah's been incredible. Sarah's been like, man, I have so much respect for single parents, like being able to hand stuff up with Sarah and being able to work with her and checking stuff. There's a lot of times where one of us is like short on sleep and frustrated and not sure what's going on, and the other one's able to swoop in and figure out what the problem is and support the other person. And we're both making sure the other one's like sleeping and eating and getting the stuff done that we need to. I feel like we also tapped into this strength of foundation of our relationship that I feel very grateful for. Yeah, it's incredible. And she's just now starting to like smile and laugh, and she started this thing probably 2 days ago where like I'm having babbling conversations with her, and it's just adorable.
Yeah.
And then I try to repeat that to her, and she'll just make up a new sound. Yeah, it's great. I love it. Parenthood is for me. I'm all for it. I highly recommend it.
Cool. Glad it seems to be going well. It seems like a pretty normal experience. Yeah, we're extremely sleep deprived too. We have a picture so you have to, not only do you have to feed the baby every few hours, but you have to like at least we recorded when we fed it last and when we changed the diaper and all this stuff on this whiteboard in our room. And I got so sleep deprived I started writing numbers backwards, like thinking that was perfectly okay. Like we have a picture where my wife is trying to get me to explain what's on the whiteboard, and I can't do it. I just cannot physically like write a number and explain what it is. That happens.
Tally, the Tally Baby app is a piece of gear that you just reminded me of. It has like a standalone device that you can click to log events, and then also really good mobile apps, and then it'll tell you. Man, in the hospital, we'd like once an hour, we'd have someone walk in and ask us when the last diaper change was, when the last feeding was, and how much it was. And your sleep deprived is like, oh god, I don't know. It was like, was that 4 hours ago or yesterday or 10 minutes ago?
Yeah.
And so having the app, you don't have to write things down. You just sort of like mindlessly click the buttons in the app, and you're able to log it. That's funny. You were writing numbers backwards. That's rough.
I know. And I didn't realize it. My wife was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, I don't know. Oh man! In our hospital, we had the option of keeping the baby with us all night or sending it to the nursery for the night.
Yeah,
and for the first baby, we're like, no, we need to keep it with us and all this stuff. For the second baby, we're like, get this thing out of here.
Yeah.
We need sleep. Then bring it back every few hours for feeding. But
with Isabella, we kept her in the room. I think the first night, and then I think the second or third night. We were like, okay, let's we need to sleep. Let's take 2 hours and just sleep as much as we can. And my God, when you haven't slept in 2 days, 2 hours of sleep is just, we woke up feeling like different people. It was incredible.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm
excited for
kids. Anyone thinking about having kids, I recommend it. Something I've felt a little trepidatious of is I've heard similar reports from parents, and I think I felt skeptical that it was just post hoc justification, what's the term for when you're a hostage and you fall in love with your captors?
Stockholm syndrome.
I thought it was a sort of Stockholm syndrome that, or like hazing in a fraternity that you justified after the fact. Parenting's really hard. It's not. I would not describe it as fun, but if you're looking for meaning in your life, this is the way to do it. It's I feel a new sense of meaning and purpose and focus that I think would have been incredibly difficult to replicate in any other domain. So I feel incredibly grateful.
I feel like it's important to point out also that postpartum depression is a thing. So if you have babies and you do not feel this way, if you feel completely overwhelmed and that's why shaken babies syndrome is a thing. Please get help. Your doctor will understand.
Yeah. I'm giving the highlight reel of it. There have been some hard times, and postpartum depression was something that Sarah and I were specifically looking out for, which, having gone through it, if I just put someone through the sleep deprivation that you go through with a baby, I think I could probably make you depressed. Most people.
That's what they do to torture people.
Right.
Sleep deprivation.
And then that on top of here's this new added responsibility, and you're doing this with your partner. And if you have any sort of underlying conflict or things you haven't worked out with them, that's only going to be exacerbated. It's a trial. It's a thing to go through. It's hard. And if you don't feel this way, that's totally okay. The range of normalcy in every aspect of parenting of how do you feel as a parent and how often is your baby pooping is so wide. There are very few norms in this arena, which has been interesting. Also, it's been surprising for Sarah and I to look into where the experts overlap and where they disagree. So everyone we talk to is yes, of course you need to feed your baby. But then we'll ask a question when we're bottle feeding her, should the nipple, how full should the nipple be? And there's so many answers. No one knows. No one knows how full the nipple should be. Should it be completely full? Should it be half full? Or is that introducing air that now the baby's going to need to burp? Or should you do the paste feeding as a thing? Oh my God. Also, everything has a name. Just laying down with your baby is if their skin is directly on your skin, it's not just laying down and your baby doesn't have a shirt on. It's that's skin to skin time, trademark. And there's all these hashtag skin to skin things of people who say, skin to skin is terrible. And skin to skin is the best thing. And people who don't do it are terrible parents. It's wild entering this arena, the strength of opinions people have and the overlaps. But it's interesting navigating that, seeing, okay, if everyone agrees that your baby's diaper needs to be changed, okay, we don't have to think about that. We just change the baby's diaper. But if there's some, it's muddy and there's a lot of differing strong opinions on it, and none of them are obviously correct. Okay, well, we get to find our own opinion in that of what the correct thing to do is. Co-sleeping versus bed sharing versus, oh my God, this is so many things. We found our own compromise of that. We also have this framework now of a lot of parenting decisions we find are trading survival percentage points for quality of life. It's just for every hundredth of a percent, your life gets so much better. But it's a little bit more dangerous
when you put their baby in when you put their baby in a new room. Co-sleeping versus not is a big one.
Yep.
Bottle feeding versus not, some people would say is one. There's all sorts of opinions. Oh yeah.
Anyone who has kids or is thinking of having kids, I would love to talk with you. There's a much longer discussion I could have here, but we'll cut it off there. There's a lot to say. There's going to be a lot more to say. Having kids is great. Anything else you wanted to say to wrap up the child discussion?
No. Yeah, okay. Excited to see how it goes. Glad everything went relatively well. Yeah.
Relatively, yeah. So many things that could have gone wrong. Oh my goodness. It's treacherous waters that we navigated. And yeah, we got a baby, and she's amazing. I love her. All right. I have 3 more things I want to talk about. The first is a quick update on File Inbox. I am doing the serverless transition. It is being serverlessly transitioned. It's been a trial, especially having the baby. I was able, having the baby, I was actually able to get an amount of work done that primarily was just finishing up some of these consulting projects. And File Inbox is being serverlessly transitioned. I've been working with a friend, Dave Setia. We're doing sort of like a coaching sessions back and forth where I advise him on his business, and then he does the same thing back to me. And cool. He helped me walk through this more progressive transition where I'm transitioning over an account at a time, which involved a whole bunch of things. I had to make excuse me. I had to make a like an isomorphic embed code that works with the old Rails app and the new Next app. And so that's been deployed, and figuring out better embeds and transitioning documents from the Rails model where it's just a Postgres table into the Firestore serverless model. And so I can almost do that by just switching a flag on the Postgres table for an individual page. I can almost just update that one value, and then if that value is present in the Rails page, it automatically redirects to .app, and then in the .app page on Vercel, it checks, do I already have this in the Firestore database? If I do, is it flagged to still be dependent on the Rails database? And either if I don't have the document or if I'm supposed to fetch it from Rails, then fetch it from Rails with a private API, and then recreate the documents and then host the page. So all of that happens in a per page basis and in a way that I can update it in the future just by setting that one Boolean flag in the Rails database. Also, all the user accounts get migrated over, and so it's happening. Accounts are being migrated. Next episode, I'll be able to report to you like the % of accounts that have been migrated. I can't tell you that yet.
So more than one account that is now moved over?
Probably a dozen. A dozen.
That's something.
And something nice. Like 83,000 didn't happen. but we'll get there. So it's happening, and I think that's all I have to say about that for now.
Cool. Sounds great.
Sounds great. I was talking with Aaron Francis at a founders retreat that I went to, and this was recently, like since we recorded the last one, and he stopped and said, Christian, listen, whatever it takes, you got to do this. I've been listening to the podcast for a long time. You got to finish this, my dude. So I'm doing it. It's happening.
I feel the same way. I've stopped bothering you as much about it. I guess you're going to do it whenever you do it. Maybe I should hold you more accountable. But,
well, part of it too is this is something I talk about with a friend of mine, Shai, who we talk a lot about low-level addictions and how if you're not careful, I find that I can fall in love with or just become very used to beating myself up over a thing. So sure. The clearest example of this is I think I've struggled with a phone addiction of stupid games or just using it as a Skinner's box of just if I need a quick dopamine hit, I'll open my phone. And if I sort of feed into that part of myself of look at me, look at you, you piece of shit, you're using your phone again when you're not supposed to, that makes me feel worse. And then the way to feel better is to play more phone games, and so then it becomes this feedback loop. But if I just sort of sit back and observe non-judgmentally, interesting, I've picked up my phone, I'm curious why I did that, it diffuses it more, and then it's less likely to turn into a feedback loop. So that's sort of what I'm taking. It's going to take how long it's going to take. I want to do this the right way, and I feel currently optimistic that it's possible this could be done by the end of the year, and that feels like a nice goal to have. So that's where that is. It's happening. I feel good about how it's happening. Nothing's blown up yet. This is sort of delicate of it's a lot of moving pieces to move around, and It's happening. Cool. I've also got 3 developers working on this, helping me push it past the finish line.
Cool. Still the same. There was one who was in college.
Yes. Ben.
Okay.
and then two other people who I a previous student of mine, and then one of his friends.
Cool.
Yeah, and they're all helping me in different ways to push this forward, which feels good. There's a whole other thing we could talk about. I'm not going to talk about it on this. We talked about Scott, right? The guy who was helping me like as a mentor with FileInbox. He was Scott and I are no longer working together, and he had come up with a proposal of sort of becoming a partner in FileInbox and continuing to work on an ongoing basis. And in return, he wanted it was sort of a grading scale, and it depended on how much money FileInbox was making, but he wanted something like 15% of top line revenue, and then something like 10% of the business in equity.
55-0?
15,
15. Okay, okay.
Yeah. And in working out the numbers in math, it was too expensive, and it didn't quite make sense for where FileInbox is. There's a lot behind that, but that's the highlight of what that is. Anything else on FileInbox?
I don't know. Anything else on FileInbox?
I don't think so. I think that's okay. I think that's all there is to say.
Okay.
Two other projects I want to talk about. So Sarah and I are living much more domestically now. We're spending a lot more time at home, which has me thinking a lot more about just like, how could we make this place nicer? And I'm reminded of these ultra wealthy celebrities who you do these tours of their house. This isn't a great example, but I'm reminded of like Michael Jackson's Neverland Ranch, and people look at it and they're like, "Oh my God, this is how extravagant! He's got like a whole zoo and a ice skating rink and a bowling alley in his house." But what you don't realize is like Michael Jackson can't go to a grocery store because he's dead. But when he was alive, he couldn't go to a grocery store because he was Michael Jackson. Like you can't go to a bowling alley. You can't go to the zoo, because then you become more interesting to everyone there than the thing that's going on, and it just totally derails it. So you're sort of trapped. You have a prison, but you're also the prison architect. Yeah. You can make as nice of a prison as you want. So it's not quite that extreme. But go ahead.
I was gonna say, first of all, I feel terrible for laughing at that, but that was an unexpected joke out of the middle of nowhere. The other is, you can look up on YouTube, I think, Michael Jackson once went to a grocery store after hours, and he essentially staffed it with all of his cousins and stuff. And so when he went, like, everyone just treated him like he was a person.
Yeah.
And you could see sort of the excitement that he was just a normal person in a grocery store.
Yeah.
It's wild. Yeah.
Can you imagine? And how many times have you been to a grocery store and had that exact same experience and not appreciated it? Like, that's a thing to appreciate. You can go and just do things. You can go to public places and you get ignored. And that's incredible. Like, that's a valuable thing that Michael Jackson didn't have, and a lot of other of these celebrities. So the situation that Sarah and I are in is not that extreme. We're still like going out and going to parks and things, but we're spending a lot more time at home. And
you're too famous for Dallas,
right? we're what would it be? We're needed too much at home. I don't know. It's things become more challenging with a baby to go places. We can still do it, but it's just logistically more complicated. So we're doing a bunch of home renovation stuff. One of which is, there was this rotten subfloor in Sarah's office, because I had drilled a hole through the threshold to snake Tesla charging cable through. And then water started gushing into that anytime it would rain, and then that rotted the floor right by the door. And so then anytime you would step on the door, your foot would sink in, which was very disconcerting, to the point where I think it was only supported like by the carpet. I think the carpet like was the most structural thing there. And so we had this whole back and forth with the HOA and with insurance of like, is this the thing that you guys cover? And it took like 4 months to find that the answer is no, you have to fix it on your own. So I finally like ripped it up and went to Home Depot and got new plywood. And as soon as I ripped up the subfloor, I realized, oh, there's a crawl space under here. There's a hole. And I went down there, and it's disgusting. It's like damp and mildewy and dark, but I love it.
Always is.
It's like the Upside Down from Stranger Things. It's like the same space that I've been living in, but it's different. And it's like, I can see where all the bathrooms are because the plumbing is coming down, and I can see where the electrical panel is because the electricity is going up there, and I can see like the outlines of rooms because I can see the floor joists of where all the walls are. Fascinating. So cool. So I've been spending a lot of time down there, and found out that like, while the hole that I cut for the Tesla charger definitely exacerbated the problem, definitely like made a lot more water go through, the problem's actually with all 3 of these back doors. So and there's also a whole bunch of problems I saw down there of like wood directly on the damp dirt. The wood moisture level is also at 20%, which is real bad. That's like at 20%, you get wood rot, and it's supposed to be, I think, between 5 and 6%. Watched a ton of YouTube videos about this, by the way. And the humidity down there is something like 80%, and anything above 60% is it'll get super moldy and wood rot and a whole bunch of other things. Also, that air is contiguous with the indoor air, so now you're getting all this mold, spores, and nasty stuff going into your indoor airspace, which could give Isabella asthma. That's a problem. So I have this whole project of like, I'm going to encapsulate the crawl space, which is
I was just about to say there's a thing you could do to fix that.
Have you done this? Do you have a crawl space?
So we had a crawl space in our last house, and I vow never again, because it's all of the worst parts of the basement with none of the benefits.
Yeah.
It can flood. It gets mold. You can't store anything down there. We did not end up encapsulating it. We got mold remediated once, and then we sold the house.
Okay.
We got a quote for encapsulation, which was like, I don't know, $6,000 or something, and I was like, nah, thanks. But yeah, encapsulation is the way to fix that. Yeah. So
yeah. Yeah, as far as I can tell, $6,000 is less than I would have thought. That's interesting. I was thinking
it may have been more. It may have been more. I don't remember.
Okay.
It was more than we were willing to spend at the time.
Okay. I haven't gotten a quote yet, but for materials to do it myself, you need a sump pump, you need a French drain, you need.
We already had a sump pump.
Okay.
Yeah. We just needed the plastic and the dehumidifier.
Yeah. Okay, if you're just putting the plastic up in the dehumidifier, that would be cheaper. That makes sense. It's like a whole multi-stage process for the way I'm going to do it, and I want to do the mold remediation myself, and that involves like soda blasting, which is taking baking soda and high pressure, sort of like sandblasting and carving off the mold, and then mold preventative, like a fungicide that you spray on the wood, and then you seal everything up. You take all the vents. Used to be that the best building practice was that you just ventilate the crawl space, and that'll keep mold out. Problem is, outdoor humidity is higher than what you need for mold to grow. So you're trying to ventilate your crawl space with moist air, and that's just going to make more mold. So that's not a good solution. So yeah, I need to air seal it, waterproof it with the plastic, do the French drain, do the sump pump. And I'm thinking that's going to be like $3,000 or $4,000 in materials for the super primo, like what the nicest one would do. And I think it would cost in the tens of thousands to hire someone else to do this. And I sort of enjoyed being down there. I had all these games I would play as a child of like, I wish I could like dig a tunnel and have a little cave that was my secret hideout. Oh my God, I just got one for free. There was one right below me this whole time. That's so cool. Also some foundational stuff of like the floor is sagging, and because some of the beams are wood directly on the dirt, that's not a thing you should ever do. It should be a concrete pad and then the wood on the pad. So I that feels pretty straightforward. I think I can just do that myself. But that's occupied a lot of my brain space. If you do that,
you may need to pull permits.
Yeah.
Sorry, the internet's kind of breaking up. If you do that, you may need to pull permits. That's the only thing I would caution you about. But it still should be possible to do yourself. Yeah.
I just emailed the HOA about that this morning. So yeah, we'll see what they say, and then if I need to do a permit, I'll figure out how to do that. Do permits cost money?
Yeah. You
just get them.
What? Usually they cost money, like $100, or it depends on what the permit's for, and it depends on your city. Your city sets the prices. Like permits here are free for certain things, and then cost money for other things, because you have to actually go to the city hall and file paperwork and actually get approval. And sometimes they need inspections, and so that costs money.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll figure it out. I have a whole Asana board though of like all the different steps that need to happen with this and the different things. Okay. So that was go ahead.
Also, though, I'll say, crazy you're doing this with a baby because, one, you have no time, and two, babies sleep, and you can't be, like, pounding away in a crawl space underneath a baby when they're sleeping.
Yeah, so, that's been tough repairing the subfloor. Like, we had to coordinate all my use of power tools with times when Sarah couldn't be going on a walk with Isabella. Yeah, that's tough. Not a lot of this needs power tools, though. Like, most of the things I just said, maybe the soda blasting might be noisy.
Yeah, I was going to say, probably when they mold remediated, they had to run a generator and had some kind of air-powered tool.
I'll need a air pump, yeah. That'll be outside, though. Yeah, I'll figure it out. But, like, rolling out the plastic and taping that up, that's not going to be anything. I want to put lights down there, and I need to run a new electrical system and have that on its own breaker. And, like, that's not going to be noisy at all. Installing the sump pump isn't going to be noisy. That's just like digging a hole. Installing the French drain is just like digging a big ditch all along the outside. I have opinions now about French drains. You can do like the perforated corrugated pipe, or there's a product you can get from Home Depot. Oh, and then you need gravel. So like, my God, dragging that much gravel down there would be hard. Or you can't
use power tools. So
yeah.
I mean, you can't use like an excavator or whatever. Like it won't fit.
Right.
So
you need a
you
shovel.
have to do it all by hand.
And then you can't even have a wheelbarrow down there because it's too narrow. So you got to figure out how to just like drag gravel across
5-gallon buckets.
Yeah, my goodness. Even 5-gallon buckets, I don't know, because there's like 5-gallon bucket might be too tall. It might be like a towel or something to drag it down there. And then there's products you can get from Home Depot or Lowe's where it's the black corrugated pipe wrapped in like a styrofoam that acts as the gravel, and then that's wrapped with a landscaping fabric, and so that would be easier. But then there's this even better solution I found, which is this product, Flow something. I couldn't tell you what it is, but it's just this like rectangular plastic that you don't even need a big enough hole for it, but it acts as its own filter and its own gravel, and so then you need a much shallower hole that's much smaller, and then you just put that stuff in, and it's a little more expensive per foot, but not if you take into account having the fabric and the gravel and the labor of putting it in. And
right.
I'm projecting it's going to take like a day to dig the trench and put this in once I get it, but we're in the final stages of figuring that out.
Anytime you can dig less, I recommend that.
Yeah,
I had to dig. I think I talked about this. I had to dig the foundation things for my deck, and oh man, it took 2 days to dig 6 holes or something like that. It's ridiculous. Yeah,
I'm curious how I'm going to do that in the crawl space. If I just get like a regular shovel and then saw the handle off, so I can.
You can buy mini shovels, like 2-foot long shovels that have a big old handle on the end. Yeah, I'd recommend that.
Yeah, that's what I would need. I'm thinking of like the little kid shovels that are just a regular shovel but totally shrunk down. But like I want the same scooper part, but just a shorter handle, like a sawed off shovel. But yeah, okay, if mini shovels are a thing, that's what I'll get.
I would recommend buying, make it easier on yourself. Buy like whatever width ditch you need. Buy that width shovel.
Yeah.
And then you can just measure with your shovel, like stuff like that.
Yep. And then just go straight with the shovel. Yeah, that'd be easiest. Related to this, and the last thing I wanted to talk about is we are because I now have access to the crawl space. Over Black Friday, Sarah was like, I saw this cool deal on these cameras. It's like whatever, $200 or $300 for this set of cameras. Could you take a look at this? And I was like, this is an ongoing conflict that Sarah and I have, because it's unclear to me when Sarah asks me for a favor, like if she's asking me to do it or if she's asking me to help her. Sometimes she'll say, can you help me with this? And what she means is, can you do this for me? And that's confusing to me sometimes. So we had a little conversation about that. And what I clarified was she would just like security cameras to happen.
She just wants this done.
Right. Yeah. And so I was like, all right, let me do a little research into security cameras. And 6 hours later, I emerged as a chrysalis from my YouTube rabbit hole.
Yep.
Have we talked about home security cameras? Do I know what your setup is?
Maybe very briefly. So I chose Eufy cameras because I did not want my data going to the cloud.
Yep.
That was my. Yep. So
those I think are the best ones you can get, like the highest quality. I got one level below those. Not Synology. I forgot what they were called. Oh, I have a box. Oh, Reolink. The box is right over there. I haven't installed it yet. Reolink has a really good selection of types of cameras, so I can have like 180 degree plus a floodlight camera in the back. So that's nice. And then in the front, I can have like a doorbell. And then we're gonna have one Dynacam on the inside that's like a 360 camera that can just be mounted on the ceiling. And then power over Ethernet (PoE) is the type of camera to get, because then it's only one line you need to run. You have to run it from like
don't need an electrician.
Right. Because it's low. What is it? Low voltage.
Low voltage. Yeah.
And you would have needed power anyway if you were going to have a powered camera or like a Wi-Fi camera. So especially for doorbells, that just makes a lot of sense. So we ended up spending a lot more than she wanted to spend. But now we're going to have like a nice system. It's in the process of doing this, I'm figuring out, I can run Ethernet lines to each office and to each bedroom. So now computers can have a hardwired connection, and oh, while I'm here, like I can have a network storage and like have that connected to the Apple TV, and oh, the Apple TV can have a hardwired connection. So I got all the stuff to do all those Ethernet connections, and we're running Cat 6 everywhere, and I got all the stuff to do like the crimping and the Keystone adapters, and I have a network switch, and I'm making the top of the coat closet like the little network space, and that's a ton of fun. So,
and are you running it through all three of your crawl space?
Yeah. Now that I have access to this crawl space, it's like I can pop into another dimension and then just boop, pop back up wherever I need to be. Yeah, it's so fun being down there. I got a stapler that is made specifically for Cat 6 cables. It has a little notch in it where you put the cable and then it staples in like around the cable. So while I'm down there, gonna have really nice cable management. Yeah. Okay. I feel like we're caught up on each other's lives now. See you in another 3 months. No, let's yeah. Being a dad has been interesting. Like having trying to work around baby stuff and having time for me and Sarah to be doing our own thing. So I don't know when the next one would be. I'd like it to be next week, but we'll see what actually happens.
I thought you meant baby, and I was like, what?
Oh, no. Podcast.
Next week might work for me. We have the holidays coming up, and so I will be gone for a week or two in a row.
That's right. Okay. Well, the next episode will happen when it happens. I've had a few people reach out to me like, hey, are you still alive? Where are the podcast episodes? There's a lot of stuff going on, so they'll happen when they happen.
Yep.
Cool. Chris,
cool.
That's all I got.
That's all I got too.
Then I will see you when I see you. Goodbye.